Hello. On behalf of HP, thank you for joining this webinar, the HP Services Security Made Simple. I am now pleased to introduce our executive host, Mike Cummins, HP Senior Director of Personal Service and Solution Sales. So let's get started. Mike, the time is now yours.
Thank you, Dominique. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you joining the call today. As Dominique said, my name is Mike Cummins. I'm Senior Director of the U.S. Personal Systems Service and Solution Sales, and I am really excited to meet with all of you today, at least in this virtual environment. Like most of you, this has become our new norm at HP, and we had to work hard to deliver better employee experiences and higher productivity for today's workforce. So today, I'm pleased to introduce you to two of HP's leaders who are eager to talk about how HP is making security simple. We'll talk about how you can keep your organization safe by defending against cyber attacks without changing user behavior or increasing your IT staff's workload. Our HP discussion leaders will kick us off by sharing a few slides. Then we'll open it up to a Q&A, give you the opportunity to ask some questions, and the HP discussion leaders will answer. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to our discussion leaders. First up, Carrie Atkins, PC Service Security Business Development Manager for North America Sales, and Terry Van Rokel, HP Security Director for North America Sales. Let's get started.
Great. Hopefully everybody can hear me well. Let's walk a little bit through the agenda. So I might just walk through our welcome and introductions. We're going to talk about HP Security Services and how we can help with security made simple. And the idea behind that is we know security is not simple, but how can HP start to help and leverage what we have to be able to help simplify the process potentially that you're looking at. Then we'll go through our Q&A, as Mike said, and closing remarks. So we'll go ahead and get started. So one of the things that we want to be able to walk through when we talk about the journey that HP's been on, we've been in hardware for over 80 years. One of the things that we've really been focused on for more than 20 years now is investing in security. We've been listening to the market. We've been implementing new security solutions based on that industry feedback. And that's why we're excited about the time that we're going to be able to spend with you all today and in the discussions we're going to have. When you look at this chart itself, when you see the blue, that's when basically our HP security stack has been launching for different elements. But the white and the orange are really where it starts to kind of come together. So the white itself is HP or security industry milestones. And you can start to see where HP's been engaged in regards to what's happening in the industry when it comes to security. When you look at the orange aspects of it, again, the iPhones, Tesla, when we start to think about like kind of popular culture tech milestones that have taken place and where they have fallen in the overall spectrum. So one of the areas now too that we want to be able to talk about is when we're focused on what's happening with IT leaders and how the teams themselves are tasked with their organizations to keeping them secure, keeping their data secure against cyber attacks, and basically how do we protect those devices, both in the consumer area and in the company area. We want to be able to focus on the attacks that are taking place. We want to be able to talk about the tools that are necessary for us to be able to do our jobs and to be able to give you freedom to have your teammates work where they need to be able to work, whether it's home or maybe it is in a public location, or in some cases, as people start to slowly come back into the offices. Where do they need the support to be able to focus on the remote workers? How can we make sure that those devices, whether it's a variety of devices or their main device, but keeping them secure without impacting the overall workflow and productivity? And so really when we're talking about, and I just noticed, my apologies, that this is actually rotating through. So we want to be able to bring that balance of limited security overall in regards to the resources for those responsibilities. So moving into the challenges, I'm going to go ahead and open everything up here. Moving into the challenges themselves, what we have are the same things that the IT leaders are facing. And so when we talk about overall the security enterprise, how it's difficult to find and the resources are limited themselves, cyber attacks are becoming they're increasingly sophisticated. It's difficult to start to protect against what's actually taking place on the signature-based antivirus attacks that are happening. So a lot of times IT teams have no way to know whether the security solution that they have in place today, if it is enabled or if it's up to date on these end devices. And then also when we talk about lack of visibility, 96% of breaches that are taking place are not discovered until months after. And so being able to have real-time reports and alerts overall is a game changer for the IT teams. When we talk about investigating, for example, false positives and remediating those devices, it's time consuming for the team to sit down and figure out how to recover from an attack. And it also can be costly, as we all know. And there's a long-term impact potentially on the organization. Employees want more freedom in their work and their location, as we just talked about. They're using different devices. They're using different things to be able to get their work done. And making their job secure across those platforms in a remote location is becoming more challenging and more difficult. So basically, seeing other companies' experiences and what they're going through, the breaches, is enough to keep all of us up at night, right? And what's happening and what's taking place. And so when we talk about overall, 67% of SMBs have experienced some sort of cyber attack within the past 12 months. And so when we talk about that 67% and we go back to what we just mentioned, we may not know till months later that that's even taken place. And so being able to have those real-time reports is going to be impactful for the team. So we have a quick poll question that's going to come up. So the percent of infections that originate from email attachments, what do you all think that that number might be? We'll give you a minute or two to be able to respond. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click to the results themselves. So basically, and I'm not sure, I might need some help from the team, but I'm not seeing any responses on here, so I don't know if there's anything special that I need to do. There we go. Thank you. So right now, you're right. So you've got 84% that are coming through those email attachments. And so thank you very much for knowing kind of where we're sitting with that. When we talk about overall the evolution of the endpoint security solutions, when we think about 2014, that's when McAfee and some of our other antivirus security really started playing a part. And so we are already providing and looking at the best out-of-the-box pre-installed with HP at no additional cost on the technologies. So our hardware itself is coming with HP SureClick and SureSense. And basically, as we start to talk about some of these stacks and the secure and where we want to be manageable in the world, our proactive security is one of the most comprehensive and integrated managed security solutions that we have today. And it's focused on mid-sized businesses. So this offering itself, when we get into a little bit deeper on proactive security, basically it's got our advanced security software. It's got proactive security services with actionable insights, which goes back to how do we help not keep you up at night. We've got the analytics, the monitoring, and the solution management overall by our security cyber experts. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about in specifically when it comes to proactive security is the service itself helps keep organizations safe with the multi-layered endpoint security that is based on our government grade information and protection from that first approach. When we talk about for our large customers, including government level, we basically are focused on our financial solutions. We're also providing advanced security as an overall a la carte solution. So these organizations, they want to be able to purchase the best of breed infrastructure, but they also want to be able to leverage the best in class solutions to be able to have that IT security resource managed. So when we talk about the protection that started in 2014, with McAfee and so forth. And then we moved to 2017 with our EDR security. And so looking at the progression overall of how we have our post-attack response and then where we are today for proactive protection, proactive is really the key word that we want to be able to focus on, is how we can get in front of it. And that's where those real-time actionable reports that we'll be looking at here shortly, we'll be able to show you how we can get in front of that. And so it's providing that reliable overall protection. And so basically, as we start to dig into the HP security stack itself, one of the areas that we really want to focus on for today's topic are really these top two. So we have HP SureClick Enterprise, as well as HP Proactive Security. So when we look at the top of the pyramid, most of you may know HP acquired Bromium last year. And so we now have basically a highly scalable application containment and isolation solution. And so what we're doing with Bromium is it's now been fully integrated into our HP offering, and it's called HP SureClick Enterprise, which again is going to be the top of our pyramid. When we look at our mid offering, which is for our mid to large organizations, which is about 200 to 5,000, we're really focused on our HP Proactive Security. And so what that's going to be able to do is they're looking for a complete solution that's going to be focused on their security needs that they're searching for. They're typically large enough that potentially they have a good sized IT that's in-house, but they may be looking for that extra layer with the threat landscape that's out there, that extra layer of comprehensive, again, going back to the term proactive security protection. And so again, as those two being the main focus. However, we don't want to pass on the opportunity to also talk a little bit about HP Pro Security Edition, which is for our smaller businesses, as well as our overall essential security, which most of that, some of you may be familiar with what comes on the hardware. And so any customer who buys an HP device, we continue to make available a full set of security features that are designed specifically using digital certificates that are a part of our unique chip called the Endpoint Security Controller. And so that is based from the hardware and up. So as we dig a little bit deeper, let me move to our next. As we move into what's in proactive security, let's focus a little bit in regards to SureSense Advanced and SureClick Advanced. And so when we're talking about these two specifically, we want to be sure that we're providing, again, that multi-layered protection. We want to be sure that we're including our HP SureSense Advanced, which is our deep learning anti-malware solution. It's focused on Windows, Mac OS, and Android, as well as, again, the SureClick Advanced. What you're going to be able to see as well is the overall insights. When we talk about being able to have that proactiveness, what are the insights that you can get in front of? So operational health. Do they have some sort of security that is downloaded? Do they have exactly what you've required for them to make their system safe, no matter if they're working remote or if they're working in the office? And then the last piece of that overall is going to be our management piece of it. And so that's the solution management itself, and then the monitoring. And so the monitoring is, again, by our certified security experts. That's an extra arm, basically, to your security needs. One of the slides that I really appreciate the most, too, about proactive security itself is when we talk about the threats that are moving through the system. So you have basically a new malware that's happening every 4.2 seconds. It's moving through. If you have your traditional antivirus on your system, like Microsoft Defender or even McAfee, et cetera, that's going to be able to catch a bulk of them. But as you start to really get into that deep layered learning and you start to get into the Bromium isolation, it really starts to limit what's actually making it through to your system. Our biggest goal is, of course, to be able to defend against the biggest threat vectors that are out there. And so when we go back to that lack of visibility, when we said 96% of breaches are not discovered until months after, in addition to having these layers of protection, you're also able to have those real-time reports and alerts, which is a real game changer for our IT teams and our security teams. So one thing that I've got now is another one of our poll questions. Let's see if I can make sure that I actually get this one squared away correctly. So the traditional antivirus mixes how many attacks in your from your experience? And I'll give everybody just a minute or two to be able to answer on this. So again, traditional antiviruses mix X% of attacks. All right, and I'm going to move forward. All right, and so with that said, it's actually the antiviruses themselves, they miss about 60% of overall attacks. And so what's happening is that, again, as our attacks get more advanced and they get more focused on direct impact, whether it's through a URL or it's through the email, it is increasing. And so we want to be able to stop that, and that's where that multi-layered comes in. So let's talk a little bit about what's inside HP SureClick Enterprise. So as we mentioned, proactive security itself is focused on really that 200 to 5,000 range. When we talk about our large and government opportunities, really HP SureClick Enterprise is where this starts to play a very active part. And I know that Terry's on here as well. Terry's going to be walking us through a demo here in just a little bit, which will be able to show more of the details around this. But Terry, also coming from Bromium and moving into HP, will have some additional insights potentially as we walk through this. But when we talk about HP SureClick HP SureClick Enterprise, one of the things that we want to be sure that we focus on is what's taking as far as the hardware encoded threat isolation, which is really what sets it apart. The other piece of that is the real-time actionable insights, as well as the enterprise-grade deployment and support, and how we can support your teams. So again, as most of you probably know, we acquired Bromium about a year ago. We've integrated that into our HP solution. We are committed to investing in our technology to be able to support the existing customers as well as our growing business overall. When we talk about the world's most advanced, basically endpoint isolation and containment solution, it can be configured to be a specific needs of the organization or managed by the IT security staff itself. And so when we talked about the hardware encoded threat isolation, SureClick Enterprise basically has malware protection against that hardware enforced isolation from incoming files, from links, and then web browsers that also are hosting PC and internet connections. And so when we talk about using that threat forensics and the advanced behavioral techniques, it really is what's going to set your mind at ease, considering some of the other that others may miss. When we talk about the reporting overall for SureClick Enterprise, basically your security team needs to be able to have those real-time endpoint visibility to ensure that the enterprise is secure. So SureClick Enterprise itself will deliver those real-time alerts. So as we start to walk through some of this, the real-time alerts that will give that intelligence overall for the attack, to be able to also know and to turn the tables on attackers and be able to eliminate those breaches ahead of time, before it actually gets into the network itself. And then the last piece of this, as I mentioned, is kind of that threat intelligence overall. And so when we talk about the isolated malware that generates the threats alert, for the SOC analyst, basically what we're looking at overall is that the endpoint team and the threat dashboard will be visible for your security team to be able to have a proactive stance on that. The other piece of that is as well to be able to expand your security resources. When we talk about your team's capabilities and we talk about what you're looking at specifically, in addition to the virtual HP SOC team, overcoming the resource constraints that we may have today, our HP security team has trained analysts and cybersecurity experts that will also be an extension to your team, and that's a resource for you to be able to take advantage of. Let's go ahead and move to when we talk about SureClick being the last line of defense, and we talk about really where we sit overall with our security solution, the endpoint protection means that your organization can avoid costly breaches. It can actually use the associated impact to the business as lost productivity or the risk of compromising sensitive company, employee, or customer data. And so when we talk about the last line of defense, the HP security services provide visibility into that protection, as we've talked about through our overall solution, the status of your devices so that your team can be more proactive in regards to ensuring that the unprotected devices are returning to a protected state. And that's the most important part, especially before an attack. When the protection first approach and the ability to ensure devices basically are protected, IT can spend less time of its time focused on investigating false positives and really start remediating the impacts of devices, and more time focused on the strategic initiatives that you've set or that you have set for you as your company. And so the last piece of this as well is that having the more proactive approach, the loss of user productivity can be reduced overall by being able to address these threats in real time. And so when we talk about kind of that next level, why HP for security? Why would we want to be as far as where we are for our security responses? So when we think about HP as a leader overall, we are a leader in PCs, but we also are a leader in security. And so where HP Security Services can help, we've been building our hardware for 80 years. We've been focused, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, for 20 years with the industry. Our PCs are highly recognized as some of the most secure and manageable in the world. Our team itself includes industry certified security experts. With our acquisition of Bromium, it gives our customers access to that isolation technology that's such a hot topic right now, and it's trusted by some of the most sophisticated global organizations and agencies. We've been investing overall in security for decades. We do, again, as I mentioned, hopefully you're all familiar with the security suite. So we've got the Sure Suite, which is Sure Run, Sure Start, Sure Recovery, et cetera. We've really bolstered this effort overall with the acquisition of Bromium, but we've also added leading security software into HP. And so not only do we have the security expertise, isolation is a technology that most of our sophisticated organizations and governments around the world are using, including the Department of Defense, large banks, life sciences organizations, as well as hospitals. They rely on the software that comes from Bromium. So we also are bringing the leading third-party security tools like deep learning, anti-malware to our clients. And so we do want to be able to open up discussions around what we'll be able to provide from that level. So not only does HP have the right to be able to play in the overall security market, but we have the right to win in security. We have the hardware, we have the software, the assets that are coming from Bromium, and we're offering the best-in-class third-party solutions, as I mentioned. And so one last poll question that we have in general is, give me one moment. Some common customer characteristics, when we think about, again, our proactive security, when we're talking about and when we're looking at our discovery with customers for proactive security, what are we actually looking for? Just to get some idea of where kind of that delineation is, where proactive security plays, and then where SureClick Enterprise would play. So from what you learned today on the slides, what are some of the common customer characteristics, again, that we look for in that discovery stage for proactive security? And I'll give everybody just a second. Excellent. And I love that actually everybody got it correct. The one part that we do want to touch on is that it does not have to be an HP only environment. And so we can work with some of our other, the other vendors that are in the market. And so we want to be able to help that and bring that to our customers overall to bring the security element. And it doesn't just have to be an HP only environment. So thank you very much. What I want to be able to do at this time, Terry's actually going to present a demonstration for you. So I think he's going to take over from a screen view. So Terry, I don't know if you're prepared to go ahead and move that into it.
Give me a sec.
Sure. And then after the demonstration, we will move into the Q&A, and Mike will be leading the Q&A as well.
Can you see it, Carrie?
I do not see. Ben, I don't know if you're able to help to make sure we've got the right view on.
Audience view, I see it. I think everybody's seeing it.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. So thank you, first of all, Carrie. That was a great overview. We're going to do a quick demo. I picked out an email example because I think you mentioned earlier that we have 90% or plus of attacks originate in an email. So as you can see on the screen here, this is really my production HP laptop, right? I'm joined in the Active Directory. I use Microsoft Office 365. And while the software that we're going to demonstrate runs best on HP devices, we've actually spent a lot of time making the software run best on HP. Like Carrie said, it's important to note that we make this software on any Windows device so that the demo I'm doing today could be run on whoever. And again, because email is the most used threat vector, I'm going to start with a demo on an email. So you can see here, I've got my email from myself from Gmail, and it went through all of the tools that are in the HP organization today, as Carrie showed that stack earlier, right? So like most organizations, we have other third-party perimeter scanning solutions. And when an email comes in, it gets scanned. It runs through a series of different scanning tools. And at some point, those tools have to make a decision what they're going to do with it. And if they say that the email is okay, then it lands in my inbox. So let me open up this demonstration of somebody's resume that was sent into us. It's first of all been zipped, and there's just a simple password, but you can see that it opens up just fine. And then when I type in the password to open it up, fat fingers, you'll see the, oh, I opened a different window, hang on. My computer says it's glitching. Is it glitching for you guys? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, as you can see, this resume opened up. And as you can see on the top here where it says HP SureClick Secure View, that means that that's an indicator that it opened up in a secure container. That is actually a micro VM that this document's running in. Ended up in this because it's a non-trusted document. It came from a source outside of HP. And you can see when I open up a little utility here called Live View, that you can see that it did actually open up into micro VM number 180. And right about now, I should be getting a representation of a piece of malware embedded in here. Live demos always go well. Maybe it doesn't go well. Here we go. Now, as you can see, this is a version of CryptoLocker, right? So this is now encrypted that Word document. And if this was live and running on my machine natively, I would now have no choice that either IT would have to get involved in scrubbing this machine, or we'd have to pay the ransom or whatever. To kind of demonstrate that how it's contained in there with the Word document, you can see as I move the actual malware itself, it can't leave the window with the Word document running in it. Like I said, I open up the live view here. You can see that the virtual containers are running on this device. And in this instance, you can see the Word document is definitely isolated in the visual container. So as an end user, rather than now being, slamming my lid shut or trying to do whatever I think I can do, rather than those contortions, now I can just simply close this Word document, and the Word document and the malware are destroyed. And as you can see, the little live view tool here no longer shows the virtual machine that was used in. So with SureClick, we're creating a hardware-enforced micro virtual container. We're using the virtualization techniques and chipsets that are shipping on every laptop device today from every manufacturer, that the micro virtual machine that was running Word document had no privileges. So we're really fitting into that zero trust architecture. That Word document could not look at my C drive. It could not see any of my map network drives. It had zero access to my SaaS services and so on and so on. So it was actually opened up as if I was running that on a separate disposable PC. So real quick, let's maybe look at one more example here. I'm going to look for Excel files in China, sample Excel files in China. So you can imagine there's probably quite a few phishing sites in China that are active today. I don't know if any of these documents are associated with it, but let's just pick one. Let's do this one here, an Excel file about some business model in Sri Lanka. So what happens is, first of all, and this was fairly new, Google Chrome now has a tool that doesn't necessarily filter what's going on, but it does give you a warning. And if you went and looked at the learn more here, it would basically tell you, we don't know what this is, so we're giving you a warning. But being a bad employee that I am, I'm going to go and make a bad click. So I'm going to say keep. I'm then going to go and show this in the folder that it's in, which is right here. And you can see this little icon right here. That's a HP icon, which says this item has been protected with SureClick Enterprise. So if I double click this and open it, again, I don't know if this is malicious or not. Again, I'm still on the wrong screen. You'll see the document opens up. You can see that it now shows as virtual machine 181. And I really don't know if this has got malicious content or not. Now, honestly, I really don't care. Because we're like here again at the top, it says HP SureClick Secure View. I know this document has been containerized, and if there is anything malicious going on in there, I don't have anything to worry about. So, and again, I close this document, and the version of it, the micro VM version, is destroyed. Now, what I could do is I can interact with those documents. I can print them, I can edit, I can save them. But this little notation here that is protected means that I can do whatever I want with it, and I don't have to worry about it taking over my machine and then spreading its way across the enterprise. So with that, that's a real quick demo of what SureClick Enterprise looks like and what it's capable of. Carrie, or?
Great. Thank you, Terry. And Mike, I think this is where we take the opportunity to be able to hand it over for some Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, both Carrie and Terry. I always love the impact of that particular demo that you do. It really drives home the message of what the whole solution is all about. Before we dive into the Q&A, your feedback and insight is extremely valuable to us. So please don't forget to take a moment and fill out our webinar survey. For those customers in the U.S. Who complete the survey, we'll be sending you a little goodie package from HP for kind of a work-from-home theme. So please make sure that you click on that and take a few moments to provide us your feedback. I'll now open up the Q&A. If you haven't done so already, please feel free to go to the Q&A tab and type in your questions. We do have some that have already come in, so I will start sorting through those right now. Okay, so the first one up, does SureClick fit into a zero trust architecture?
I'll touch that one, Carrie. So it absolutely does, and I think I alluded to that earlier during the demo, right, that because we're creating a isolation and containment area for those documents, there is no way for those the malicious content has nothing to steal, nowhere to go, and no way to persist. So mapping that into that zero trust architecture, and again, like I said, it has no way of looking at my C drive or anything else. So yes, we are really at the root of a zero trust architecture.
All right, thank you. Maybe a little bit along that same line, Terry, so I'm going to keep you on here. So basically, a micro VM is kind of like a sandbox.
It is in a way, but there's one primary difference, right? So a sandbox today would have to make a decision at some point, right? And what if that decision is wrong? And I mean, it's a little bit disheartening when people are looking at sandboxing technology, because one of our primary competitors creates their own online malware testing environment. What better way for a malware composer to test his stuff is to test it against the adversary. So the primary thing is we don't have to make that decision of releasing it or not. If it is always protected up front, and the triage that takes place if there's an event is full and follows the entire MITRE kill chain.
Perfect. So this has come up on a couple of questions here, and I believe we also addressed it during the actual session, but just for everybody's sake, is proactive security a solution for HP devices only?
Great question. And the answer is it is not HP devices only. So you can have some of the other vendors that are out there, and our security solution will work with it.
Perfect. Can we replace other antivirus with proactive management?
With proactive management and proactive security, or just proactive management? Just for clarification.
The question says, can we replace other antivirus with proactive management? Perhaps they meant proactive security, so we'll go down to proactive securities.
Okay, that works. And so the answer is yes. And so you can replace it, but I will say that in a lot of cases, what we find is that we are working closely with, for example, I'll use Microsoft Defender, and we can layer with Microsoft Defender and be able to provide that additional protection on top of that. So the answer is yes, but it also can layer with what you may currently have.
Can I add something there, Carrie?
Absolutely.
So if a lot of the technologies that we get compared to are detection-based technologies. So they're looking for a specific fingerprint, if you want to call it, right? It's an algorithmic hash of a piece of malware. The problem is you don't always have with polymorphic malware today, they change all the time, every second or so. So how is a detection-based technology like that supposed to keep up with all that? They can't. They've tried to add artificial intelligence and such, but it's still, if they did do a job as well as we do, you wouldn't see enterprises on the news. And I'm going to brag a little bit right here of the over 5 billion events and tasks that the SureClick Enterprise tool has protected. We have never had a breach. I don't think you'll find any other vendor able to say that. But back to your question about integration and such like that. So one of the things that we do, I have a large financial institution that's a customer that they have Windows Defender, they have SureClick Enterprise, and they have an EDR solution. So what we've done with them is they realize that we will catch the malware that's unknown, and we, via Sticks and Taxi, we can then feed that back into the EDR solution and actually make it better. And we're okay with that because we know we're still always going to find the unknown that those tools are unable to see.
Great, thank you, Terry, for that. That actually addresses another question that did come in around how Microsoft Defender and SureClick kind of interact with one another and complement each other. And it's just that layered approach. How many rings of the castle defenses do we have out there? So perfect, thank you. Another thing that I believe you also alluded to a bit about, once you get a copy of this file that's infected and you're playing around with it in the micro VM, can you actually copy and paste information out of it?
Yes, you actually can. You can edit it just like it's a normal Word document, and as long as it stays with the, if nobody removes the protection from it, it's just like any other Word document. You can print it, edit it, forward it, whatever you want to do.
And would there be any concern around that copy and paste potentially carrying any malware over with it?
No, no.
Perfect. All right, let's see. I am going through the list, and I don't see that we have any other questions submitted at this time. I'll give it another moment here. Last call. All right. Well, Carrie and Terry, again, thank you for sharing everything that you know about security and the demo that you gave us. Very clear that this, while it can be a daunting word in these crazy times, security, we're showing customers how you can actually make it simple and, most importantly, without impacting end users' productivity and enabling faster security deployment for today's modern IT environments. Most of all, I want to thank all of you, the customers and our partners, for joining us today. Please reach out, let us know how we can offer further assistance to you or your organization, whether it's adapting your IT environment to this new norm or otherwise. we're here for you. And again, one more thing before we close. Please don't forget to complete your survey. It will stay on the screen a little bit afterwards if you haven't had a chance to do that yet. And with that, adieu, great day. And Dominique, I'll hand it back to you.
This now concludes the webinar. Thank you for joining. Have a great day.